So we live in this era of just obsessive tracking, you
Oh,
know?
absolutely. Everything is logged.
Right. I mean, your smartwatch monitors your heart rate, your steps, how deeply you slept last night,
Yeah.
and you browse the web, and algorithms are silently tracking your clicks, your purchases, and, well, basically building this massive profile on you.
We're totally used to it by now.
Exactly. We are incredibly comfortable with the idea that our physical and digital lives are being meticulously categorized by these invisible systems.
Hmm.
But what if the universe is tracking something infinitely more consequential than your daily step count?
Right. Which brings us to today's source material.
Yeah. Today, we are going on a deep dive into an essay written by Feng in February 2023. It's titled The Cost of Credit Bankruptcy, a Revelation from American Homeless.
It's quite a title.
It really is. And the essay claims that your moral integrity is actually being logged in this, like, cosmic database. And the penalty for a low score is absolutely terrifying. So, okay, let's unpack this, because this source takes a really surprising turn from sociology straight into spiritual physics.
Yeah, and just to be clear before we get into the weeds here, we aren't saying we endorse this cosmic physics framework, right? Or,
Yep.
the metaphysical claims made in the text.
Right.
But we are going to impartially examine it because the logic the author uses to connect these highly tangible earthly laws to these proposed universal rules is just fascinating to break down. It's a very unique architectural argument.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because the author starts somewhere very grounded and, frankly, very tragic.
Yeah, very real.
The essay begins by looking at the reality of homelessness right here in the United States. The text points out that in an incredibly powerful, affluent country like the U.S., there are approximately 600,000 homeless
A
individuals.
huge number.
And most are living on the streets in genuinely miserable conditions. And rather than exploring a multitude of socioeconomic causes, the author zeroes in on one specific systemic driver.
Right. And what's fascinating here is that the author identifies what they term credit bankruptcy as this massive catalyst for the situation.
Or bankruptcy, yeah.
The text details how once an individual's credit is bankrupt, it's officially recorded by the U.S. judicial system, and it lives perpetually within the federal government's network databases.
Which is an inescapable system.
Exactly. This is framed not just as, like, a minor financial hiccup, but as a mechanism that triggers a devastating cascade of systemic barriers.
Right.
Because landlords and companies, they primarily check these exact federal databases to vet individuals.
Yeah.
So a person with severe credit issues suddenly finds themselves entirely locked out of the operational system of society.
Which is just a visceral reality. I mean, the text notes that new companies simply will not hire them, and new landlords won't rent to them, leaving these people with, well, really no choice but to wander the streets.
Yeah, the author emphasizes that in a rule of law country, once your credit is bankrupt, the consequences are dire.
It's essentially like an invisible domestic passport, you know?
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have physical checkpoints between cities in the U.S., but if your credit passport is revoked, you are effectively exiled within your own country. You could physically stand in the center of a bustling city, but you cannot participate in its economy. You can't get the job. You can't get the apartment. You're just locked out by a database.
Right, and that framing is crucial because the author is using this earthly tragedy as a structural mirror for their larger argument.
A mirror for the universe.
Exactly. We all intuitively understand how a credit database works, right?
Yeah.
We understand that in a modern digitized society, actions have inescapable documented consequences.
You default on your debts, and the system remembers.
Yes. The system remembers, and society restricts your access. So the author paints this vivid picture of an earthly mechanism of consequence to lay the absolute groundwork for the much larger metaphysical argument.
Setting the stage, basically.
Right. If human beings, with our flawed and limited systems, can create a database that meticulously tracks reliability and, dictates your quality of life based entirely on that data, it sets up a powerful logical premise.
Right, because if an earthly database can lock you out of society for bad finances, it begs the question, is there an equivalent system tracking our moral debts?
That's the leap.
And the author pivots directly from the American judicial system to the management of the universe itself. The text claims the universe also follows a strict rule of law called Tao.
The Tao,
And according to the source, just like that U.S. federal database, the Tao meticulously records everyone's integrity.
It does. And the author uses a very evocative quote to describe this cosmic mechanism.
Oh, the net quote?
Yeah. The text states, "Divine punishments, though slow, are always sure, with big meshes, yet letting nothing slip through."
Letting nothing slip through.
Right. It implies a system of accounting that might not be instantaneous in the way, say, a declined credit card is, but it is absolutely flawless over time. The imagery of a net with big meshes is brilliant. I mean, you might swim around for a while thinking you're free, but you are still inside the net.
Nothing is missed.
Exactly. No broken promise goes unrecorded in this framework.
The text then brings in the Lifechanyuan guide, and it repeatedly emphasizes to its members the critical importance of honesty, stressing that you must speak the truth and keep promises. But then it drops this incredibly heavy line. It says it is, quote, "better to lose one's life than to break one's word."
Yeah, that is a heavy line.
I mean, hold on. I have to push back on that because to a modern ear, that sounds incredibly extreme.
It does sound extreme.
Right. Because we are used to white lies, to changing our minds, to, canceling plans at the last minute because we're tired. Is the author seriously saying that every single white lie is a permanent, catastrophic ding on our universal FICO score?
That's a great analogy.
I mean, is it really better to die than to break a minor promise?
Well, in the context of this essay, yes. The author frames integrity not as a polite moral suggestion or, a nice trait to have for a functioning society.
Right.
They frame it as a literal existential prerequisite. The text explains that integrity is the fundamental essence of being human.
The fundamental essence.
Yeah. Without that fundamental integrity, the proper way will not appear, and life cannot endure. Just as bad financial credit bars you from accessing housing on earth, a lack of spiritual credit absolutely bars you from heaven.
Wow.
The text explicitly states that heaven never accepts those who lack integrity. It functions as a strict, binary gatekeeper.
So it's not a sliding scale where your good deeds outweigh your bad ones. It's a binary system.
Exact.
But if this cosmic tracking system is so flawless, if it truly lets nothing slip through its meshes, how do we explain the real world?
The real world problem.
Yeah, because it is so frustrating to look around and see people who lie, cheat, deceive, and they still seem to win in life.
Right.
We all see corrupt figures or successful scammers who seemingly face zero consequences.
And the author actually anticipates that exact cognitive dissonance. The text acknowledges the harsh reality that in certain places and at certain times, people who break their promises can cleverly evade deserved punishment.
They really can.
They can obtain immense material wealth. And they can even garner respect and admiration from others while living a complete lie. The universe allows this short-term evasion.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because that is maddening.
It is.
It's like watching someone live luxuriously in a mansion, driving sports cars, and it's all funded by stolen credit cards.
Yes, exactly that.
They look incredibly successful to the outside observer, and maybe they even feel successful, but it's an illusion because the bill simply hasn't come due yet.
And the author argues that the feeling of success is actually the most dangerous part of the phenomenon.
Really?
Yeah. The text warns that when individuals feel pleased with themselves for deceiving the public and evading punishment, they have already fallen into what the author calls the devil's web.
The devil's web.
Right. They now belong to the devil's clan. The author separates short-term earthly evasion from long-term spiritual accounting. So the wealth and respect gained through deceit aren't signs of beating the system. They are the bait.
And the ultimate destinations for these individuals, according to the text, are the animal world and hell.
Yeah, very stark.
The author is uncompromising here. Those who do not honor their promises and do not repent have zero chance of reaching heaven. So that short-term success literally locks the trap around them because they think they've outsmarted the Tao.
Right. The illusion of getting away with it prevents the individual from correcting their ledger. If a scammer is immediately punished, they might change their ways, right?
Sure, they'd get scared.
But by allowing them to succeed temporarily and feel pleased with their deception, the system exposes their true lack of integrity, finalizing their spiritual bankruptcy.
That is wild. And this concept of a moral ledger, it doesn't just apply to individual scammers secretly racking up cosmic debt. The author scales this exact same framework up to the highest levels of human organization.
Yes, macro and micro.
The essay breaks down how credibility bankruptcy applies universally, demonstrating this sort of fractal nature of trust, from the micro to the macro.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the text outlines a clear progression to illustrate this.
Okay, let's hear it.
At the macro level, if a government's credit is bankrupt, meaning they break treaties, lie to their citizens, or default on debts, the people will no longer trust that government.
Naturally.
Consequently, other governments will cease engaging in substantial exchanges with it. Trade freezes, diplomatic relations crumble, and the text asserts this inevitably leads the country into chaos.
Just total collapse.
Right. And then stepping down a level, if a company's credit is bankrupt, say they defraud investors or lie about their products, the text argues that the company will inevitably go bankrupt, without a doubt.
Makes sense.
And then, back down to the micro level, if an individual's credit is bankrupt, their path becomes extremely difficult, with virtually no bright prospects.
It's all the same pattern, because trust is essentially the foundational currency of the human experience.
Yes. Currency is the perfect word.
Whether you are an individual signing a lease for a studio apartment or a massive nation-state signing an international trade treaty, the physics of trust remain identical. You need the currency of credibility to transact.
Exactly.
Without it, the entire system just freezes.
And the underlying thesis here is that a breach of trust is mathematically destructive.
Mathematically.
Yeah. It isn't just morally frowned upon. It structurally undermines the entity committing the breach. The inevitable result is collapse, regardless of whether that entity is a single person, a multinational corporation, or a sovereign government. The rule of the database applies uniformly across all scales of existence.
So, knowing that individuals, companies, and governments inevitably fail because, let's face it, we are human, we break promises, we mess up what happens when we do.
That's the big question.
If the tallow lets nothing slip through its net, is there a cosmic bankruptcy court? Like, is there a way to pay off the debt we've accrued, or are we just permanently doomed the second we tell a lie?
Well, the author does provide a pathway for redemption, but it focuses heavily on the mechanics of repentance and, crucially, punishment.
Punishment.
Yes. According to the text, heaven will not forsake a person who sincerely repents, who undergoes deep self-reflection, and who earnestly tries to rebuild their integrity. But there is a very strict condition attached to this process.
And the text states that if you break your promise, you must willingly accept the consequences without blaming the divine, without blaming others or anyone else.
No excuses.
Right. You have to own the failure completely. And then the author makes a claim that really flips our standard view of suffering on its head.
Yeah, this part is fascinating.
The source says that receiving punishment is actually a good thing. It indicates that there is still hope for you. Escaping punishment, on the other hand, is a bad thing because it signifies there is no hope left.
It is a profound paradox.
Yeah.
Because, human instinct drives us to avoid punishment and pain at all costs, right?
Obviously.
But in this framework, the punishment is the active mechanism of balance. It is the literal process of paying down your cosmic debt.
Paying the bill.
Exactly. If you are not punished for your transgressions, it means the universal system has written you off as a bad debt entirely.
Oh, wow.
You are no longer participating in the mechanism of redemption. You are just waiting for the final drop into that devil's web we discussed earlier.
So what does this all mean? Cosmic punishment isn't like a parking ticket handed out by an angry traffic cop. It's physical therapy after a severe injury.
Oh, I like that comparison.
Yeah, when you go to physical therapy, the therapist stretches you, they push your damaged muscles, and it hurts. Sometimes it is excruciating, but you don't blame the therapist.
Because you know you need it.
Right, because you know that the pain is the only way the body heals. The friction of the muscle rebuilding itself is necessary. The punishment is the therapy for a fractured integrity.
Yes.
And this leads us to the author's final and perhaps most complex definition of what credit actually means, moving from sociology straight into physics.
Right, the physics of morality. The author scales the concept of credit through 3 distinct levels, transforming it from a social contract into an immutable law of nature.
Okay.
We usually think of credit just as keeping a promise. The text calls this the simple level. Promises must be kept. Actions must yield results.
Right, simple enough.
Then it scales up to a more complex legal sense, adhering to contracts and fulfilling systemic agreements. But the author doesn't stop there.
No, they don't.
The text eventually reaches a point of pure physics, defining the highest level of credit as conducting oneself according to the principle that the sum of positive and negative energies must be 0.
Wait, the sum of positive and negative energies must be 0. We are talking about the law of conservation of energy applied to human morality.
Yes, exactly.
That is a massive conceptual leap from talking about a landlord checking your U.S. credit score.
It really is. It is the philosophical climax of the essay. The author is literally viewing human actions, promises, and interactions as energetic exchanges.
Energetic exchanges. Okay, explain that.
Well, think about it causally. When you make a promise to someone, you are setting an energetic expectation. If you fail to keep that promise, you have taken their time, their trust, or their resources, their energy.
Right.
You take it without providing the agreed upon return. You leave a vacuum.
Ah,
You create an energetic deficit in the universe. Violating this balance, according to the text, is the ultimate credibility bankruptcy.
wow.
Therefore, paying your cosmic debt through willingly accepted punishment is the act of suffering to generate the necessary energy to bring that universal equation back to zero. It restores the physical balance of the universe.
So you can't just delete a broken promise with a quick apology.
Nope.
The energy has been spent, the deficit exists, and it has to be accounted for. It has to balance out mathematically.
Exactly. And once that principle of energetic balance is violated, the system will inherently seek to correct the imbalance.
Right.
This is the underlying mechanism behind those slow but sure divine punishments. The universe is simply balancing its checkbook.
That is a staggering way to view human interaction.
It really reframes everything, doesn't it?
It does. As we wrap up today's deep dive, let's look at the incredible arc we've just traveled.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We started with the stark, tangible tragedy of U.S. federal databases and the heartbreak of homelessness. We looked at how being locked out of the financial system physically exiles you from society. From there, we explored how the author projects that exact earthly mechanism onto the cosmos, introducing the Tao as the ultimate, inescapable tracker of our moral integrity.
Right. And then we examine the extreme danger of short-term evasion, where earthly success can actually be the trap of the devil's web closing around you.
The bait.
Exactly. We saw how the fractal nature of trust mathematically dictates the survival or collapse of everything, from a single individual to an entire nation-state.
Yeah.
And finally, we arrived at the profound idea that our actions are governed by the law of conservation of energy, where accepting punishment is the only way to balance our energetic ledger and achieve cosmic solvency.
The core message of the source material isn't just about being a good person in some vague, polite sense. It frames true integrity as an essential mathematical law of survival.
Essential for survival.
Yeah, it's as fundamental to your spiritual existence as gravity is to your physical body. It's challenging, it's heavy, and it certainly makes you reevaluate how you navigate your daily commitments.
Oh, absolutely.
Which brings us to our parting thought for you today. The author leaves us with that highest definition of credit, the principle that the sum of positive and negative energies must equal zero.
The universal equation.
Right. If that is indeed the ultimate rule of the universe, I want you to think about your own ledger. We track our steps, our heart rates, and our bank accounts with obsessive precision. But what about the invisible metrics?
The things we don't log.
Yeah. What hidden debts might you be unknowingly accumulating in your daily seemingly insignificant interactions? The small promises casually broken, the slight exaggerations to save face, the commitments only half fulfilled.
All those little deficits.
Exactly. If every single action has a literal energetic cost, how might those invisible imbalances be subtly shaping your reality, your opportunities, and your path right now without you even realizing the bill is coming due? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.